The philosophy of nature isn't really the most successful part of Hegel's work, to say the least. We could say that if Hegel were a composer, the philosophy of nature would be certainly the least played piece in his repertoire. For a long time, even Hegel's most hardcore fans wouldn't touch it. But recently, some people have started thinking that this work deserves a second look, and that it might even contain some valuable insights for today's concern. This is in part because Hegel makes a strong argument that we can't really understand what it is to be social, norm-responsive, autonomous human beings without correctly understanding our place in nature and our relationship to it. For obvious reasons, this is a claim that resonates today in a variety of ways. In the opening of his 1823-1824 lectures on the philosophy of nature, which have not been translated into English yet, Hegel got straight to the point in introducing this issue. He says, "What is nature? This is the question we have to reply. We find nature in front of us. We get familiar with natural things. We collect knowledge regarding its laws, its multiplicities, and we do it to infinity, upwards, downwards, inwards. This collection of knowledge is not satisfying, already because there is no end in view, because the question still arises, what is nature? Nature remains a problem for us, also after all this knowledge is there. Precisely insofar as we see its metamorphoses, its processes, the need arises to know nature in its essence, to force this Proteus to stop his metamorphosis so that we can more easily get an awareness of what nature is. This is what we have to talk here. This has to give us the concept of nature." As you can see from this introductory passage, Hegel thinks nature is a stratified concept and that there is more to it than the grouping together of all available knowledge coming from different natural sciences. It is the business of the philosopher to look into this notion and identify its additional aspects and articulate their relation with our social normative self-constitution. Hegel understands that our notion of nature is partially constituted by and dependent on a whole range of human activities. He goes on to write, "We can relate to nature partially in a practical way, partially in a theoretical way. The practical relation is essentially determined through desire, through need. The latter makes use of the nature for its purposes, consumes it. The practical relationship is selfish. Human beings are the purpose, and what gets produced is satisfaction. When we relate theoretically, we take distance from things, and insofar we take distance from things, we leave them free. Things assumes for us the determination of the universal. We transform them into something universal. This is the relation of the theoretical activity to nature. One moment and the other, taken together, constitute the concept." In this passage, Hegel says, as an example, that we relate to nature in at least two ways. First, in a practical way. Nature can be seen as the object of human needs, appetites, and drives. But this does not exhaust our engagement with nature. We can also observe nature in a more detached, disenchanted way, typical of the natural sciences. Interestingly, Hegel recognizes that our account of nature must in some way include both moments. For many philosophers, there often seems to be a constitutive tension or even outright conflict between these various images of nature. But Hegel doesn't think this conflict is the end of the story. In fact, he provides a detailed analysis of these potentially competing pictures and attempts to combine them into a unified picture of human beings in nature. That is to say, into a conception of nature that is sensitive to scientific knowledge and as room for specifically human, autonomous agents and appetites. From this standpoint, we can start to ask engaging questions like, what are the specific natural structures enabling our form of human subjectivity? What role does nature play in shaping the way we understand ourselves as spiritual beings? This introductory passage from the lectures is only the beginning of a longer story, but it clearly shows the exciting possibility of rediscovering Hegel not as a theorist of an a prioristic metaphysical conception of nature, but as a pioneer in elaborating a conception of nature that grounds our norms, responsive, rational constitution. Hegel's wager is that a correct grasp of the concept of nature is still essential in our self-understanding, and this makes his reflections on nature still challenging after 250 years.